Hi everybody, this is Mrs. Ford, and today we are going to create a really cool project based on conversation hearts. You ever go into a store and see around Valentine's Day, see these conversation hearts by a company named Brock's? They're these three-dimensional hearts, and they have all different really cool sayings on them to celebrate Valentine's Day. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our inspiration from these, and we are going to be drawing and painting our own conversation hearts, like this. You're going to be able to paint yours. You're going to be able to make up the sayings on each of them, and then we're going to be using acrylic paint to make our own. So let's get started. Hi everybody, now what we're going to do is we're going to start with our conversation hearts. Okay, so the first thing we're going to need is we're going to need some inspiration. Of course we're going to need some inspiration. We're going to need some inspiration from these little cute conversation hearts. They come in all different pastel colors, and we're going to learn later about tints and how to make tints and shades out of each of the colors of the color wheel to create these pastel-y conversation hearts. So we're going to have a couple for our inspiration, and we are going to get our canvas board. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to flip over our canvas board, and we are going to write very, very clear and nice and big, Mrs. Ford, and we are going to write our period number. So it's 1, 2A, 1, 2B, 3, 4B, whatever your period is, and we are going to flip it over. Okay. Second thing is we are going to get our piece of cardstock, and we're going to fold the cardstock in half, like so. And then we are going to draw the heart. We're going to create a tracer using this cardstock. So nice and big, touching the top and the bottom. We are going to draw half of the heart. So we're going to draw a curve up, and we are going to draw a curve down. Then what we're going to do is we are going to cut the paper. Okay? And when we do this, we're going to open up the heart to create our stencil. Now this might take a couple times and a couple practices for you. So you're going to open it up, and then you are going to have a beautiful heart stencil to begin tracing. After you have your tracer, then you're going to take your heart and you are going to trace it onto your canvas board. You're going to press down firmly with your hand, nice and flat, so that the stencil stays still, and you are going to trace your heart. Do not press down really hard with the pencil because of the stain. So now we have our stencil. We have one heart. Now we're going to draw another one, and this one is going to overlap this. So we can kind of create the angle that it is, whatever you want. I'm going to put mine about here. When it goes through the other side, you are not going to transfer this. So let's go down just a little more. So if it goes through the heart here, you are not transferring it, tracing it. So it's going to go behind. It is okay if it goes off the paper, like so. So now we have our two conversation hearts. We're going to create a drop shadow, because as we look at these conversation hearts here and we lay them on the table, there is a drop shadow on them. This little part right here is called a shadow, a drop shadow. And if we look at one of these, just kind of set them up just like our still life or picture we have here, we're going to create a drop shadow. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the side, we're going to draw a straight line down, and then we're going to curve it to match the heart, and then we are going to draw a straight line down here. We're also going to do the same thing, and we're going to overlap it because this one's on top. So we're going to take the edge of the heart, and we are going to curve the line to match this. And we're also going to then erase the heart that's through here. We're going to do the same thing on this one. So I'm going to turn the canvas board so it's easier for us to do. So we're going to make this a little wider, and we're going to curve this around like that. Now, from this stage, we are ready to start painting. Now we're ready to start painting. We got to think about our background, and we got to think about what two colors we are going to do our hearts. Remember, these conversation hearts are pastel in color. So what we're going to do every time that we paint one of these, we are going to be creating a tint. A pastel is a tint. When you add white to the main color, it makes it lighter. Just like this light pink, the purple, the orange, there's greens, there's lots of pastel colors that you can create for yours. So think about what you are going to do. You're going to first start out with your background color. All right, so what you're going to do is you're going to make a pastel tint with that. So Mrs. Ford is going to first use a placemat. We need a placemat when we are working. We need a variety of different size brushes. We need a container with when we have paint, either a tray or little cups, something where we can mix our colors together. And we only need a little tiny bit of paint. You do not need a lot of paint for this canvas. It is not that big. All right, so what we're going to do is we are now going to mix colors. I'm going to use a teal or aqua color for the background. So I'm going to take a little bit of blue, and then I'm going to scoop a little bit of green and mix it up until I kind of like the color that I see. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add white. And the white is going to make the tint. And I want to make sure I add enough, because what's going to happen is this is going to be the background color. So if you and a partner want the same color, you just need to mix one. Just make sure that you mix enough paint for each of you at your table. All right, so from here, if you like your color that you have created, it's light and pastel-y, and you are going to take your brush and you are going to start painting. First thing is you want to make sure that your paintbrush doesn't have lots of globs on it like that. You're going to kind of wipe some of it off so that you get a decent amount of paint on one side of the brush. Then you are going to go around your heart. So what I like to do is make sure there's lots of paint, and you are going to slowly go around the edges of the heart and then paint the background. So your first step is to paint the whole background. Now time to paint the hearts. We're going to do the same thing. We are going to create a tint. So I'm going to choose one pink and one purple. Mrs. Ford doesn't have purple paint, so I'm going to mix red and blue to make purple. Okay. Now after I created the top part, what we're going to do is we are going to create a darker shade for the bottom to make it look like it's 3D. To do that, we are going to add just a little more color. First thing we're going to do is we are going to create a tint. And this time I'm going to do this opposite. So I'm going to add the shadow first. It's going to be the darker pink. It's going to be at the bottom. Then I'm going to mix a lighter tint. And we're going to paint the heart. The last step of the painting, we're going to add a shadow right below this heart with the dark color that we put here. And we're going to put a shadow right on the edge so that it looks like this one is on top. And we're just going to add a little bit of darker pink to this. If you have a different color, you're going to add a different color to this with the value. So on this one here, I added a darker orange to create the shadow underneath. At this point, we're going to let this dry. On your conversation hearts, there are cute little messages, one-word sayings on them. So we're going to put a message on each of our conversation hearts. On this one, I put XOXO and love. There's some that say sweet, cute, funny. So you can kind of put any kind of one you want. You can have a lot of fun with the different words that you are going to write on your conversation heart. So the first step to this is we are going to take a ruler, and we're going to wait till this whole thing dries. We're going to take a ruler, and we are going to kind of lay it down so that we make sure that our words are completely straight across. When we do this, we're going to spell out the word. Okay, so for this, I'm going to write cute. So I'm going to make very big, bold letters, and on here, I'm going to write them in pencil. So I'm going to spell that out. I'm going to make them all nice and neat. I'm going to try to make them the same size across. It's really hard to see on the video camera, and that is okay. Then I'm going to make it on the other one. Now we're going to do the same thing to the other one, but part of the words are going to be hidden. So over here, if we were going to do XOXO, we would pretend that it was overlapped. So if I would pretend to do an X here, an O, part of the X would be shown here. And then I would put an O here. So you're going to only see part of that second word just because it goes underneath. It's overlapping. Now what we're going to do is we are going to get some red paint to do our letters. So remember, you can have paint in a cup. You can have paint on a tray. Okay, so it doesn't really matter where we get paint, but you do not need a lot of paint for this step. You are going to get a thin brush, and you're going to make sure there's a lot of paint on that brush. And you are going to carefully trace over your letters with the paint. A little tip is I like to put my finger, my pinky down onto the canvas so that I kind of have an anchor for my finger when I'm painting in my letters. So you're going to do this to both of the conversation hearts. When you are finished, then you're going to look to see if you have to touch up any areas with the paint, if you need to fix anything, if you kind of went out of lines, and then you are going to let it dry. And that is how you create a conversation heart painting.